In the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, where the horizon stretches endlessly and the waves whisper secrets of power and ambition, a quiet revolution is unfolding. It is a story of steel giants that command the seas, of nations vying for supremacy in an arena where control of the waters can dictate the fate of continents. Imagine, if you will, a sleek modern behemoth slicing through the Taiwan Strait, its deck poised for the thunder of jet engines, while across the ocean venerable warships, once the unchallenged rulers of the waves, grapple with the relentless grip of corrosion and delay. This is not the plot of a fictional thriller, but the reality of today's naval landscape. China's newest aircraft carrier, the Fujian, commissioned just weeks ago on November 5, 2025, represents a bold leap forward in Beijing's maritime aspirations. In contrast, the United States Navy, long the guardian of global sea lanes, faces mounting challenges with an aging fleet plagued by maintenance woes. And in a twist that underscores the shifting tides, Washington finds itself turning to allies Japan and South Korea for assistance in shipbuilding and repairs, a move that speaks volumes about the vulnerabilities beneath America's naval might. This documentary explores the intricacies of this rivalry, peeling back layers of history, technology, and strategy to reveal why the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific may be tilting, and what it means for the world. To understand the significance of this moment, we must first journey back through time, to the foundations of modern naval power. Aircraft carriers, those floating airfields that Project Force thousands of miles from home shores, did not emerge overnight. Their story begins in the early 20th century, during the tumult of World War I, when the British Royal Navy experimented with launching seaplanes from converted ships. But it was World War II that truly elevated the carrier to the pinnacle of naval warfare. In the Pacific theater, battles like Midway in 1942 demonstrated how carriers could turn the tide of war. The United States, emerging victorious from that conflict, built upon this lesson. By the war's end, the U.S. Navy possessed over 100 carriers, though most were smaller escort types. In the post-war era, as the Cold War dawned, America consolidated its dominance. The introduction of nuclear-powered carriers in the 1960s, starting with the USS Enterprise, marked a quantum leap. These vessels could steam for years without refueling, carrying dozens of aircraft and supporting extended operations far from supply lines. Nuclear propulsion, a technology that harnesses the energy from controlled atomic fission to generate steam for turbines, allowed carriers to maintain high speeds, over 30 knots, and unlimited range, limited only by food and aviation fuel for the crew and planes. This technological edge underpinned U.S. strategy during the Cold War. Carriers became symbols of American resolve, deterring Soviet expansion and enabling interventions from Vietnam to the Persian Gulf. The Nimitz-class carriers, commissioned starting in 1975, exemplified this era. Massive ships displacing around 100,000 tons, capable of embarking up to 90 aircraft, including fighters, bombers, and reconnaissance planes. Displacement, for those unfamiliar, refers to the weight of water a ship pushes aside when floating, essentially a measure of its size and capacity. The Nimitz-class used steam catapults to launch aircraft, powerful systems that accelerate planes from 0 to over 150 miles per hour in seconds using pressurized steam. This allowed for rapid sortie rates, the number of aircraft missions a carrier can generate in a given time, which is crucial in combat. By the 1990s, with the Soviet Union's collapse, the U.S. Navy stood unrivaled. Its 11 carrier strike groups, each comprising a carrier, cruisers, destroyers, submarines, and support ships, patrolling the world's oceans as guarantors of free navigation and American interests. Meanwhile, China's naval journey was markedly different, beginning from a position of relative weakness. In the early days of the People's Republic of China, established in 1949, the People's Liberation Army Navy, or PLAN, focused primarily on coastal defense. Lacking the industrial base and technological know-how for blue water operations, those conducted far from home waters, China relied on submarines and small surface vessels to protect its shores from potential invaders. The concept of an aircraft carrier seemed distant, almost unattainable. It wasn't until the 1980s, amid Deng Xiaoping's economic reforms, that Beijing began eyeing carrier technology. These reforms opened China to foreign investment and technology transfer, sparking rapid industrialization. By the 1990s, as China's economy boomed, so did its ambitions. The Taiwan Strait crisis of 1996, when the U.S. deployed 2 carrier groups to deter Chinese missile tests near Taiwan, served as a wake-up call. Beijing realized that without carriers, it could not contest American dominance in its own backyard. China's first step into carrier aviation came through acquisition rather than innovation. In 1998, it purchased the unfinished Soviet-era carrier Varyag from Ukraine for a reported $20 million, ostensibly for conversion into a floating casino. But this was a ruse. The ship was towed to China and refitted as the Liaoning, commissioned in 2012. The Liaoning, a conventionally powered carrier displacing about 60,000 tons, uses a ski jump ramp for aircraft launches, a curved upward slope at the bow that helps planes gain lift without catapults. This limits the types and weights of aircraft it can operate, typically around 30 to 40 jets like the J-15, a Chinese copy of the Russian Su-33. Conventional propulsion, relying on diesel or gas turbines, requires frequent refueling, constraining endurance compared to nuclear carriers. Despite these limitations, the Liaoning marked China's entry into the carrier club, providing invaluable experience in operating fixed-wing aircraft at sea. Building on this, China launched its first domestically built carrier, the Shandong, in 2017, commissioned in 2019. Similar in design to the Liaoning, it also employs a ski jump but incorporates minor improvements in radar and aircraft handling. These carriers allowed the plan to develop doctrines for carrier operations, including air-wing management where pilots and crew coordinate launches and recoveries, and integration with escort ships for anti-submarine and air defense. By the early 2020s, China was operating 2 carriers, conducting exercises in the South China Sea and beyond, signaling its intent to project power regionally. Now enter the Fujian, China's third and most advanced carrier, which elevates the plan to a new level. Launched in June 2022 and commissioned on November 5, 2025, at a ceremony in Sanya, the Fujian displaces around 85,000 tons, making it larger than its predecessors but still smaller than U.S. supercarriers. Its key innovation is the Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System, or EMALS, which uses linear induction motors to propel aircraft. This technology, similar to that on the U.S. Ford-class carriers, offers smoother acceleration, reducing stress on airframes and allowing heavier payloads. EMALS can launch aircraft more efficiently than steam catapults, potentially increasing sortie rates by 20 to 30%. The Fujian is expected to carry 50 to 60 aircraft, including the stealthy J-35 fighter, a twin-engine jet designed for low observability, meaning it evades radar better than older models. Stealth technology involves shaping the aircraft to deflect radar waves and using special coatings to absorb them. Just weeks after commissioning, on December 16, 2025, the Fujian made headlines by sailing through the Taiwan Strait, a sensitive waterway separating China from Taiwan. Taiwan's defense ministry monitored the transit closely, noting no aircraft on deck, suggesting it was a routine passage rather than a provocative exercise. Satellite imagery later showed the Fujian docking with the Liaoning at a naval base in eastern China, hinting at potential dual-carrier operations. While conventionally powered, limiting its range compared to nuclear vessels, the Fujian represents a step toward global blue-water capability. Analysts project that China's next carrier, already in early construction, may be even larger and possibly nuclear-powered, addressing endurance issues for operations in distant waters like the Indian Ocean. This rapid progression contrasts sharply with the challenges facing the U.S. Navy. Once the epitome of engineering excellence, the American fleet now contends with systemic issues that erode its readiness. Maintenance delays have become chronic, particularly for large conventional ships, those without nuclear propulsion like destroyers and cruisers. A December 10, 2025 report from the Congressional Budget Office highlighted that overhauls often exceed estimates by 20 to 100%, causing ships to spend more time in dry docks than at sea. For instance, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the backbone of the surface fleet, are projected to lose roughly 25% of their service lives due to these delays. Service life refers to the expected operational years of a ship before retirement, typically 35 to 40 years for destroyers. Corrosion, the chemical reaction where metal deteriorates due to exposure to oxygen and moisture, exacerbates these problems. Saltwater environments accelerate rust, weakening hulls and systems. In response, the Navy launched the Surface Ship Corrosion Mitigation Program in December 2025, aiming to assess and treat specific vessels during maintenance periods. Yet aging infrastructure at shipyards, staffing shortages, and limited dry dock capacity persist. A Wall Street Journal article from August 2025 detailed how ships languish in repair yards, with some waiting years for overhauls. The fleet has shrunk from over 500 ships in the Cold War to around 290 today, straining resources amid global demands. These issues trace back through a timeline of events. Post 9/11, the Navy focused on counterterrorism and Middle East operations, diverting funds from maintenance. The 2008 financial crisis led to budget sequestration in 2013, capping defense spending and deferring repairs. By the 2010s, as China accelerated its buildup, U.S. shipyards struggled with workforce attrition, skilled welders and engineers retiring without adequate replacements. The COVID-19 pandemic worsened delays, with supply chain disruptions affecting parts availability. In 2025, reports emerged of destroyers like the USS Green Bay showing visible rust, undermining credibility in the Pacific. Megarust conferences, annual gatherings focused on corrosion, underscore the ongoing battle, with laser cleaning technologies being explored as potential solutions. Beneath these visible problems lie less discussed factors. Workforce challenges include a shortage of qualified personnel. The Navy needs around 40,000 more sailors and shipyard workers, but recruitment lags due to competitive civilian jobs and rigorous requirements. Budget priorities favor new acquisitions over sustainment, with the Ford-class carriers, while advanced, facing teething issues like unreliable EMALS and elevators. Technological espionage may play a role. U.S. officials have accused China of stealing carrier designs, accelerating Beijing's progress. Economic pressures, including inflation in materials like steel, compound costs. Moreover, the Navy's global commitments, patrolling the Red Sea against Houthi threats, supporting Ukraine indirectly, stretch resources thin, leading to deferred maintenance cycles. Faced with these hurdles, the United States has turned to allies Japan and South Korea for support, a development that highlights the interconnected nature of Indo-Pacific security. South Korea, home to world-leading shipbuilders like Hanwha Ocean and HD Hyundai, has emerged as a key partner. In December 2025, a mid-sized Korean firm secured its first contract to repair a U.S. Navy vessel, marking progress in allied maintenance cooperation. Earlier, in October 2025, American and Korean shipbuilders inked deals to pursue auxiliary ship programs, non-combat vessels for logistics. Korea's investment of $5 billion in U.S. shipbuilding, announced in August 2025, aims to revitalize American yards. Japan, with its advanced facilities, is involved in joint investments for maritime prosperity zones, targeted areas for collaborative construction and repair. This begging, as some characterize it, stems from necessity. U.S. laws like the Jones Act restrict foreign-built ships for domestic use, but exceptions for allies could ease burdens. Proposals like the Ensuring Naval Readiness Act seek to allow foreign repairs for military vessels. South Korea's efficiency, building ships faster and cheaper due to lower labor costs and streamlined processes, contrasts with U.S. delays. For example, Korean yards deliver vessels in half the time of American ones. Japan's expertise in advanced materials and robotics complements this. These partnerships are part of broader alliances including AUKUS and the Quad to counter China's expansion. The implications of this naval rivalry extend far beyond shipyards and carriers. In the Indo-Pacific, where trade routes carry trillions in goods annually, control of sea lanes is paramount. China's buildup challenges U.S. alliances, prompting countries like the Philippines and Vietnam to bolster defenses amid South China Sea disputes. Taiwan remains a flashpoint. The Fujian Strait transit underscores Beijing's ability to pressure the island. A conflict there could draw in U.S. forces, testing carrier vulnerabilities to hypersonic missiles like China's DF-17, which travels at Mach 510 and maneuvers to evade defenses. Globally, this shift affects energy security, with chokepoints like the Malacca Strait vulnerable. Economic coercion, as China has wielded against Australia, could escalate. U.S.-China relations, strained by trade wars and human rights, now hinge on military postures. Allies balancing strengthening ties with Washington while engaging Beijing may define the new equilibrium. Russia's partnership with China adds complexity, potentially dividing U.S. attention across theaters. As we reflect on this narrative, it becomes clear that naval power is not static but a reflection of national will, innovation, and alliances. China's ascent with the Fujian signals a multipolar world where no single navy dominates unchallenged. The U.S., with its rusting fleet, must confront internal frailties to maintain deterrence. Turning to Japan and Korea is not weakness but pragmatism, forging a collective shield against uncertainty. Yet the seas remain unpredictable. Will cooperation prevail, or will rivalry lead to sea confrontation? The answers lie in the choices of leaders and the resilience of fleets. In this era of great power competition, the Pacific's waves carry not just ships but the weight of history and the promise or peril of tomorrow. As the sun sets on one empire's unchallenged reign, it rises on another's ambitions, reminding us that in the game of nations, the ocean is both battlefield and arbiter. As the year 2025 draws to a close, the maritime balance in the Indo-Pacific region stands at a pivotal juncture, one defined by contrasting trajectories of naval ambition and institutional strain. On one side, the People's Liberation Army Navy of China has solidified its position with the commissioning of its third and most advanced aircraft carrier, the Fujian, on November 5, 2025. in a ceremony attended by President Xi Jinping himself. This vessel, with its electromagnetic catapults and capacity for stealth fighters, embodies Beijing's relentless drive toward blue water dominance. On the other, the United States Navy, historically the preeminent force on the world's oceans, grapples with a fleet marked by persistent maintenance delays, visible corrosion on aging hulls, and a shrinking number of operational ships, hovering around 290 to 296 battle force vessels. In response, American leaders have increasingly sought partnerships with allies Japan and South Korea, whose shipbuilding industries rank second and third globally, to bolster repair capabilities and sustain readiness. This documentary delves deeper into the operational realities of these developments, examining the technological edges, strategic maneuvers, and underlying vulnerabilities that shape this evolving rivalry. The Fujian's entry into service represents not merely an addition to China's fleet but a qualitative shift in its carrier aviation capabilities. Displacing approximately 80,000 to 85,000 tons, the Fujian is conventionally powered yet equipped with 3 electromagnetic aircraft launch systems, EMALS, a technology that accelerates planes to takeoff speeds using electric motors rather than steam. This allows for launches of heavier, more fuel-laden aircraft, enabling extended range and greater payload delivery compared to the skyjump ramps on the earlier Liaoning and Shandong carriers. During sea trials concluded prior to commissioning, the Fujian demonstrated successful catapult launches and arrested recoveries of 3 key aircraft types: the J-15T, an upgraded variant of the mainstay J-15 fighter, the J-35, a carrier-based stealth fighter designed for reduced radar detectability, and the KJ-600, a propeller-driven airborne early warning and control aircraft essential for detecting threats at long distances. These tests, widely publicized in September 2025, confirmed the carrier's initial full-deck operational capability, paving the way for its formal integration into the fleet. Just weeks after commissioning, on December 16, 2025, the Fujian undertook its first transit through the Taiwan Strait since entering service. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense monitored the passage closely, releasing images of the carrier with an empty flight deck, suggesting it was en route northward, possibly to Shanghai's Jiangnan shipyard for further refinements or maintenance. Chinese authorities described the movement as routine, without military provocation, while analysts noted it underscored Beijing's growing confidence in deploying advanced assets in sensitive waters. This transit followed an earlier passage during trials in September 2025, when the Fujian ventured into the South China Sea. With home porting in Sanya on Hainan Island under the Southern Theater Command, the Fujian enhances China's ability to maintain persistent presence in contested areas, from the East China Sea to the Indian Ocean approaches. China's carrier program has progressed methodically since the Liaoning's commissioning in 2012, a refitted Soviet-era hull that served primarily as a training platform. The Shandong, launched in 2017 and commissioned in 2019, introduced domestic construction while retaining ski jump limitations. The Fujian, however, closes critical gaps, allowing for a more diverse and potent air wing estimated at 50 to 70 aircraft. A fourth carrier, designated Type 4, is already under early construction, with reports indicating potential nuclear propulsion for unlimited endurance, a feature that would address the refueling constraints of conventional power plants. This buildup reflects broader investments in supporting infrastructure, including expanded pilot training, deck crew proficiency, and integration with destroyers, submarines, and replenishment ships to form cohesive strike groups. In stark contrast, the U.S. Navy's surface fleet contends with entrenched sustainment challenges that undermine operational availability. A Congressional Budget Office report released on December 10, 2025, detailed how maintenance for large conventional ships, destroyers, and amphibious vessels routinely exceeds schedules by 20 to 100%. These overruns stem from underestimated workloads, discovery of unforeseen damage during overhauls, and limited shipyard capacity. Older ships with extended service lives due to delayed replacements suffer disproportionately, losing significant portions of their projected operational years. Corrosion, accelerated by prolonged exposure to saltwater, remains a pervasive issue, prompting the Navy to initiate a dedicated surface ship corrosion mitigation program in late 2025, involving assessments, crew training, and material supplies across multiple vessels. These problems are compounded by workforce shortages in public and private shipyards, supply chain disruptions lingering from prior global events, and competing budgetary demands for new construction versus upkeep. Global commitments, including operations in the Red Sea and support for allies in Europe and the Middle East, further strain the fleet, leading to extended deployments that defer routine maintenance. The result is a force where ships spend disproportionate time in repair, reducing the number available for deployment and eroding deterrence credibility. Recognizing these constraints, the United States has pursued enhanced cooperation with Japan and South Korea to augment its industrial base. Throughout 2025, initiatives advanced significantly. South Korean firms including Hanwha Ocean and HD Hyundai secured contracts for repairing U.S. Navy vessels, with one mid-sized yard completing its first such project in December. Investments flowed both ways, with Korean entities committing billions to revitalize American facilities, while joint ventures explored construction of auxiliary ships. Japan contributed through discussions on shared maintenance frameworks and investments in maritime infrastructure. These efforts, part of broader alliances like the Quad and AUKUS, aim to distribute workload, leverage allied efficiency, where ships are built faster and at lower cost, and ensure sustained presence in the Indo-Pacific without overtaxing domestic yards. Less visible but equally critical factors influence this dynamic. For China, rapid advancement benefits from centralized planning, substantial state subsidies, and dual-use shipyards that blur civilian and military production. Technology acquisition, including insights from earlier purchases and open-source research, has accelerated progress. Yet challenges persist. Integrating complex systems like EMALS reliably at sea, training thousands of specialized personnel, and developing doctrines for multi-carrier operations in contested environments. For the United States, institutional hurdles include stringent procurement laws favoring domestic builds, workforce attrition amid competitive labor markets, and political debates over funding priorities. Historical post-Cold War drawdowns reduced the fleet from over 500 ships to its current size, while new programs like the Ford-class carriers encounter their own integration issues with advanced technologies. The global implications of this naval asymmetry extend across economic, diplomatic, and security domains. Sea lanes carrying trillions in trade traverse the Indo-Pacific, vulnerable to disruption and crises. China's carriers bolster claims in the South China Sea, influencing neighbors' alignments and resource access. Taiwan remains the most acute flashpoint. The Fujian's capabilities enhance blockade or amphibious options, complicating U.S. intervention calculations. Broader partnerships, including with India, Australia, and European nations, seek to counterbalance this through exercises and technology sharing. Energy routes, freedom of navigation, and responses to non-state threats like piracy or disasters all hinge on naval presence. A diminished U.S. fleet risks emboldening adversaries elsewhere, from the Middle East to the Arctic. Conversely, allied collaboration could foster resilience, distributing capabilities and deterring coercion. In conclusion, the commissioning of the Fujian and the U.S. Navy's outreach to allies encapsulate a profound transition in maritime power. China's trajectory points toward a larger, more capable force, driven by national resolve and industrial momentum. The United States, drawing on technological superiority and a network of partnerships, seeks to adapt rather than concede dominance. Yet adaptation demands resolve, addressing internal frailties, investing in sustainment, and deepening alliances. The Pacific's vast waters have long been a stage for great power contests. Today they reflect not inevitable conflict but choices toward cooperation or confrontation. As carriers like the Fujian ply these seas alongside allied fleets, the world watches whether balance yields stability or tension escalates. In an interconnected era, naval strength serves not just national interests but the broader order of open seas and peaceful commerce. The path forward lies in prudent stewardship of this legacy, ensuring that power at sea promotes prosperity rather than peril.